Not the best way to start out, but it did make me laugh once when Bud says to Kelly after she expresses her worry of their parents being at parent-teacher night.
When are they going to realize that you're stupid and leave you alone?
It's a good line.
Is it?
Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be doing another episode of Married with Children. So if you're enjoying these episodes, or if you're just a fan of Married with Children and you enjoy consuming content about it, please consider subscribing and or following. Like the episodes, comment, suggestions, anger, whatever you want to comment. Please also consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page at patreon.com/TheRankPodcast. Now today, we're ranking the 14th episode of the second season of Married with Children titled Guys and Dolls, written by Sandy Sprung and Marcy Vosberg and directed by Linda Day. So just as a reminder, it's an old show, so I'm not too concerned about this, but I'm going to say it anyway. There will be spoilers ahead. So let's get into it, starting with the potent notables. Now this episode aired on Sunday, January 10th, 1988. Married with Children went from a 3.9 rating to a 4.3, but didn't beat its lead-in, Werewolf, which had a 4.6 and was a rerun. I mean, I don't know what was happening there. I guess people were really digging Werewolf. Anyway, it got destroyed by everything else in its time slot, as is typically the case since Fox was a brand new network. It lost to the CBS Sunday movie Terrorist on Trial, the United States versus Salim Ajami, which had a 13.3 rating. It also lost to Spencer for Hire on ABC, which had a 15.3 rating. And the winner of the night, My Two Dads on NBC, which had a 22.9. Now, if you're wondering what the best one on Fox was, it was 21 Jump Street, as also has been the case for a while now. The next potent notable, the montage of Al and Steve searching the urban streets and alleys of Chicago for the Barbie doll is actually the exact same 15 feet repeated. Little Hollywood magic there. Okay, so looking through this episode, I came upon the uncredited car stereo thief, whose name was Bullet Valmont. And I mean, how do you not look up a guy named Bullet, right? So first thing I noticed was a surprisingly lengthy IMDb bio page. Now, Bullet here, nay Sean, has had a bunch of bit roles, including this one, but this was the sentence that really hooked me. Quote, his best known roles are the baby-throwing gang member in Class of Nukem High 2, Subhumanoid Meltdown, and the alley punk who receives a balloon giraffe from Jim Carrey in The Mask. The beginning of that sentence is crazy. He's known for being a baby-throwing gang member in the craziest named movie ever. And then by the end, I was like, oh, that guy. I know that guy. This is actually pretty fascinating because this guy who has clearly not made it as an actor, which is fine, and I don't mean any shade by that, really figured out a way to make himself useful to stay in the industry. He's worked in creature effects on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and The X-Files, and as a weapons fabricator on The Scorpion King, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Matrix Reloaded, and Thor. But here's the piece de resistance. He is a self-taught sword fight choreographer. So this sword fighting began his 3-decade-long love of all things pirate, to the point that he's created a combat comedy troupe called Imagine Pirates. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that he is also the author of the advice column Wench Whisperer, which I have not perused, but it sounds just incredible. All right, so that's it. Those are the potent notables. Let's go to the episode overview. So we open the episode with some sibling bickering, which is not typically my favorite in this show. The whole Bud hates Kelly, Kelly hates Bud thing is just kind of annoying most of the time. Yeah, it can be funny at times, but they go back to it a little too much in my opinion. Anyway, not the best way to start out, but it did make me laugh once when Bud says to Kelly after she expresses her worry of their parents being at parent-teacher night.
When are they going to realize that you're stupid and leave you alone?
It's a good line.
Is it?
Anyway, so basically we start out with Kelly worried about school because she doesn't do well with her grades. Of course, we see why when she believes Bud when he starts discussing the plot line of Robinson Crusoe to help her with her book report. And he turns it into Gilligan's Island, even going so far as convincing her to sing the theme song. And I'm sorry, but really? She wouldn't have recognized that? She wouldn't have recognized Gilligan's Island theme song? I feel like teenagers today would still recognize that.
No,
No, they wouldn't.
I'm probably wrong about that. Either way, they would have recognized it in the 80s. But Kelly isn't the one that Al and Peggy are worried about, it's Bud. He's always messing with Kelly and apparently did a report on Brazil where he put a picture of her in a bikini on a big poster board, which felt a little bit odd.
So very odd.
Not gonna lie. Also, now if you think this episode is headed in the direction of more family time with the kids, you'd be wrong. Essentially, Peggy thinks that Bud has too much free time and convinces Al to figure out a hobby for him, which turns into Steve and Al having a hobby together, collecting baseball cards, specifically 9 baseball cards, because they were trying to collect the all-time best Cubs team. Also, this got Peggy and Marcy talking about Barbies, and we no longer cared about the kids for the most part for the rest of this episode. The turn in this episode is that in Al and Steve's zeal to find the cards they want, they sell an old Barbie of Marcy's to pay for one. But this Barbie was one that Marcy was keeping to give to her future daughter, which somehow her husband didn't know. Anyway, when Marcy discovers it missing, she's consumed with rage and literally says that she'd kill the guy who did it, which seems like a lot, but she's angry, so yes. Suddenly, we're treated to some campy noir style filming where Al and Steve go looking for the doll they sold because they found out that the place they sold it to just happened to be robbed. So after an incorrect Barbie was retrieved at first, for which they received a beating from a biker gang. I'm just thinking, like, if people are listening or watching this in a vacuum, like they haven't watched the episode, they're just listening to me describe it, they're like, what the fuck is happening in this show? It pretty much, when you're watching it, that's kind of what you're thinking. Anyway, they go back out and get the right one, but they have to give up all their baseball cards to get it, including whatever money that Steve has in his pocket, which sounds about right for these people in this show. And then to close it out with a nice bookend, Kelly is convinced she's going to get an A on her book report about Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven Family, which is what Bud has been helping her with, which is just the Addams family. She says if she gets an A, can she get a car? And instead of correcting her, Al just says, of course, sweetheart, anything you want, which is a cute and funny ending. Question is, where will it end up in the rank? Let's go to the rank.
A rank.
The rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And then I add the laugh counter, which is where I tally the amount of times the episode made me laugh out loud. So 1 point per laugh, that's added to the cumulative ranking, and that's how we're getting our score. So the first category is story, which I gave a 2.5. There's not much of a story here. It's more like a day in the life type of thing. We start out with Kelly being worried, then Bud is the one in trouble, so they need to get him a hobby that turns into a hobby for Al and Steve, which then turns into Marcy and Peggy playing with Barbies. It just basically goes from thing to thing. There's not like a compact story here. Maybe 2.5 is actually too high, but whatever. That's what I gave it. So let's go to acting, which is the next category, which I gave a 3.5. David Faustino is fine for a kid, but he's certainly not good. The guest star that played the cop was kind of awful, and there's actually a point in it where you can tell that he forgot his line, but whatever. Everyone else was good. Ed and Katie are obviously the best on the show. Christina Applegate was pretty good in this one too. So let's go to dialogue, which I gave a 3.25. Not too many laughs in this one. I will say I appreciated that they didn't rely as much on the Peggy and Al hate each other dynamic. I mean, it was still a lot, but not as much as it has been. I am, however, getting kind of sick of the sibling rivalry stuff, which I mentioned at the beginning of the episode overview. Every once in a while it's okay, but it feels like this is all Bud and Kelly ever get to do. So let's go to the next category, which is episode coherence, which I gave a 2. This story started with talking about the kids' grades and schoolwork and ended with it, sort of. So you'd think based on that, it would be pretty coherent. However, the entire middle had nothing to do with that, and it was the absolute flimsiest strand that got us there. I mean, why even bother with the kids' schoolwork stuff? Why not just make the episode about collecting baseball cards and whatever? I mean, they did that with the car with Steve and Al. I don't see why they couldn't do it with baseball cards. But anyway, it was goofy. There is one other part that I couldn't help but feel was incoherent with any form of reality, and that's that Kelly wouldn't recognize the theme songs of Gilligan's Island and the Addams Family. Like, even now, since Wednesday's out on Netflix, people have to know the ba-da-boom. So the next category, last category, is character relatability, which I gave a 3.5. Everyone's decently relatable. The thing I don't get is selling your spouse's stuff without asking. That seems pretty unrelatable to me. Everything else, the wanting to get it back, the wanting to collect cards that your kid doesn't care about, wanting to play with Barbies, all that stuff works. I'm not sure that I necessarily buy Al sticking it out with Steve to find Marcy's Barbie doll, though. That's why it's not higher. So that's all of the categories. So now we'll go to the laugh counter, and this episode made me laugh 11 times, which is decent. It's double digits, right? It's not bad. But this puts the episode total at a 25.75, which puts it directly into the mediocre tier. Now for the series, the average is now at a 33, which puts it in the I'd watch it again tier. That feels right. So thanks for listening and or watching. If you'd like to see a list of our episode series rankings, you can do that on our website at therankwithjohnandzach.com. Remember to subscribe, review, and comment, and please consider supporting us on our Patreon site at patreon.com/therankpodcast, and you'll get exclusive perks. I'll leave you with this. How did Bud get Kelly to sing the theme song to the Love Boat in class? Because she was doing a book report on Moby Dick.
Whoa, wait a minute.
Sorry.
Tastes like goblin piss.